What is up, friends? We are back here at oddschecker.com/US talking more PGA Tour action, and we are right back into elevated event season. We're at Bay Hill this week. We got the players next week. Congrats to all the Chris Kirk bettors from yesterday. Even a lot of friends of ours had the Eric Cole sweat on. What an incredible... You can't buy the magic. The magic remains not for sale in the world of golf. Events like that, we can make fun of the field, but they're great. The ecosystem of golf needs them. But we're right back to the big boys, and we'll waste no time. Jon Rahm stands alone here, plus 700. Rory in behind, 10-1. Scottie pulling up shop on the odds checker grid at 11-1. Is the only thing that could cool Jon Rahm down might be a little wind, little Bermuda, a little water. Does that just mean Rory's now going to take over? Anything on these top three for you, Andy?
Well, right now, it's hard to make a case against any of them. But if I was attempting to make a case against Jon Rahm, where I would start would be that historically, he has had less success on Bermuda courses than he has on POA and bent grass. With that being said, I think on paper, Bay Hill is perfect for his skill set. I mean, we want Jon Rahm on courses where he has a long iron in his hands as much as possible. That is the case at Bay Hill this week, with 30% of approach shots coming from 200 yards plus. I'm still not betting a guy at plus 650 to win a tournament with 130 of the world's best players also in the field. If I was to go to someone up top, I think the most value is on Rory, coming off of two middling finishes at Riviera and Phoenix. And let's just keep in mind with Rory, his floor is so damn high that finishing 29th and 30th in an elevated event is like about the worst that he can do, right? He's still been hitting the ball great. So I would probably go to Rory if forced to choose. But you know me, Jeff, I still can't find a way to bet somebody 10-1 or shorter in a golf tournament with this many great players. What about you, my man?
Rory's finished top 15 in 6 of the last 7 years here. He's never missed a cut.
Oh, yeah.
That includes
It's
wins
a perfect golf course for him.
And if we just go to a part of the golf season that Jon Rahm dominated into one that Rory McIlroy dominates, it kind of feels like it'd be par for the course for everything that's happened in the betting world this year. But like you, Andy, it doesn't scare me off. All it does is you go to bed on Sunday thinking, maybe I just got to go to the top. But those odds boards come out, and the success of Rahm, the expectation of Rory, the evergreen ability of Scottie just means we get bigger numbers elsewhere, and we load up that grid. Max Homa kind of in a standalone situation at 19, but you got, Morikawa at 20-1, Thomas flirting with 23, even 25, Will Zalatoris 24, Xander Schauffele 24, Cantley 28, Finau 28, reading them off here on the odds checker grid. Full disclosure, I bet Will Zalatoris this morning. Also,
me too.
I'm out of town. I'm out of town, and in this new world of betting regulation that we're all getting familiar with, it's much harder for me to make my bets. I am not proud of how I behaved at 7 a.m, bugging, literally lighting up a friend's phone back home. like I phone bombed him, for lack of a better term. To make sure I got a piece of the Will Zalatoris 30. There's so many great players here, but after the Genesis, if I see a 3 in front of Willie Z's name, I don't wait a moment. I don't think about it anymore. I'm not even concerned about the health. I'm in on it. And honestly, even the 24s, 25s that remain available on the grid, I still think those are fair numbers. The question is, who in this range am I going to supplement Willie Z with? You sell me on somebody, Andy.
I'm having the same problem. First thing I did this morning was I bet Will Zalatoris at 30-1. I am definitely not as much of a Will Zalatoris guy as you are. In fact, this may be the first or second time I ever think I've spent money on Will Zalatoris on the outright market. He's just never somebody that I've never really gotten to. I miss the community win in Memphis. He's just never been one of those guys that I end up betting. I felt that he was a touch overvalued throughout the course of his career. This course, on the other hand, his name jumped out to me like a sore thumb. I mean, if I was designing a perfect golf course for Will Zalatoris, it would look a lot like Bay Hill, similar to Jon Rahm. This is a guy where you want a long iron in his hands as much as possible because of their driving ability. Guys like Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy, and Will Zalatoris, I like to say, they start tournaments like this on second base. Kevin Kisner starts this tournament at home plate. They already start this tournament with a double. In terms of supplementing, Geoff, I will say this. This is the highest that I've seen Justin Thomas in recent memory. Can you think of a time that you have seen Justin Thomas
Nope.
widely available above 20 and in, the 23s? And if it doesn't take action, which I haven't heard a lot of chatter about him this morning, I could see that number even getting up to 25. I still, for some reason, don't find myself auto-clicking it, but I had to ask you.
Like a lot of people, it was over 20. I had to bite at the Genesis based on, some great history he's had there. And I don't know that I mean, he's one of the few guys I'm circling around. I love the consistency of Xander Schauffele, his ability to take my ticket into the weekend. And I feel like we're getting really fair, strong numbers on Cantley and Finau at 28-1.
Big
I mean,
time.
this is the byproduct of how great Rahm, Rory, and Scheffler are, and even Max Homa to a certain degree.
Even the Xander at 24, Geoff. Xander at 24?
It's crazy, man. Even to circle back to the top of that, I mean, the way Collin Morikawa's short game showed up for me at the Genesis, I think is an incredible sign for him to end that win drought. Maybe even it sets up well for Augusta. There's so many good options. There's so many good options here. It is probably Xander. JT is the guy I'm looking at the most. Potentially Finau as well. 28 could be a tipping point for me. No, I'm not betting all of these guys. I've made 2 bets already in Will Zalatoris, and someone we'll get to in our next tier here in a moment. But it's an elevated event, Andy. Even at the Honda, the 150-1 good in cash. It was the 30-1. Like, we're not even getting long shots at the Honda. I don't know what the point of no return is now in this thing, but they've done a good job in giving me odds that suckered me into that next tier, and I avoided the top.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about it. Once you get into the 40s, I mean, you've got some incredibly great players. I got to ask you right off the top, is the 35 on Viktor Hovland, is that the one that catches your attention?
Oh, look at me blushing. Just look at me blushing. I can't help. Listen, got to find my footing here, Andy. And I decided I got to go to my guys. And not like these guys are preeminent winners on tour, but Vic and Vic at the 35, I think is totally fair. That Friday round last year, I don't have a memory of many individual rounds that didn't happen in a major championship as I try to recap a year. We watched 52 straight weeks of this thing, and they all kind of blur together. That Friday round by Viktor Hovland en route to his second place here last year, I don't know that I'll ever forget it. And I'm going back to the well on Viktor at Bay Hill, 35-1. Thank you very much, odds checker.
And I remember with Viktor Hovland last year coming down the stretch, if you don't recall, I mean, he was, I would say, inches away. He hit the perfect approach shot on 18. I remember it did it just land at the top of the bunker, or did it roll right through the green?
Honestly, I think on his back nine, both multiple instances of each of those, I think, happened. I don't think either memory is wrong. He got in a tough way, and you're asking him to probably play to his ceiling to win an elevated event, especially with the short game. But when you bet on Viktor, when you're betting on anyone in an elevated event, you're really only betting on that ceiling showing up, or if you didn't play a placing, you are ripping up your ticket. Matthew Fitzpatrick, is he injured? How healthy is he, Andy? Because 4 straight years, second, ninth, 10th, ninth, before the country club. This would have been my ultimate pick for if when Fitzpatrick wins in North America, this would be the
the
place.
spot. Yep.
Yeah, do you trust his health? Sungjae, with his just overall consistency and back-to-back third places, followed by a 20th last year, hits all those previous trends. This is Hatton's happy place. Anything before we sort of get out of the 40s and get closer to our barometer interest you?
Well, I bet Cameron Young at 50-1.
There it is. Yep.
Suddenly, I mean, we're talking about a guy that almost won 2 major championships last year, and people were betting at like 18-1 at certain. I mean, people were grabbing 50-1s on Cameron Young to win majors this year, right? And now he's kind of sitting there at 50. I don't know if it's, I mean, we have pretty good numbers this week, Geoff, just in total. I can't remember the last time that I woke up on a Monday morning and saw so many numbers on guys where I was like, that seems relatively fair to me.
Fair.
Yeah, right. So I took Cameron Young at 50-1. He's coming off a great performance at Riviera where he gained over 3.5 off the tee and on approach. The putter is the only issue right now, but like that's the deal with Hovland too in his short game. That type of stuff is baked into the number. That's the reason why these guys are above 35 and not in the 20s, which their ball striking talent seems that they should be. But no, it's Cameron Young for 50 to me, and I've only made 3 bets this morning, and the next guy is right here as well. So I might as well just get to it. How far is Hideki going to fall? Because he's a top 20 player in the world and he's 66-1.
Okay, so yeah, I think, okay, you sort of got me lost for words there, but I mentioned at the Tournament of Champions show to start the year that if this is a sign of what Hideki's number is going to be in full fields, elevated, stronger field events, then I might have a serious Hideki Matsuyama problem.
You have to, yeah.
And here we are with what feels like an absurd number, more than fair. But yeah, I mean, it does feel like we're getting some fair numbers. I think the way Sam Burns is showing some life between the Waste Management and Genesis makes that 50-1 fair. You mentioned the Cameron Young number. So there are so many potential opportunities here that like there's a force field just drawing me away from the very top of the board as I construct my card. We're now in what has honestly been a dead range in the PGA Tour, especially in a super elite field like this. I can tell you it is players like Tommy Fleetwood. If it's ever going to happen for my guy somewhere, it would be here. I'm not, me talking about Fleetwood kind of feels redundant, although I haven't really bet him this year. Maybe I do need to get on board. And Gary Woodland, for me, Andy, is another guy, 90-1, using that odds checker grid as low as 66-1. So that he's a guy whose number you got to keep an eye on. The way he was striking the ball at Genesis for parts of it was unconscious. I didn't get to bet Gary Woodland at the Honda last week because he didn't show. It's the first time I've ever not been bet Gary at the Honda. I feel like I got to turn those funds that didn't get put on him last week. I got to roll them right over into this one, I think.
Yeah, we're in lockstep this week, Jeffrey, which I don't know what we should be feeling about that because I actually haven't had my best couple of weeks either. I hit Siwoo Kim at the Sony Open this year was my only outright of the year. So I think I'm like 1 for 7 this year and in need of one badly, which leaves me thinking that I probably shouldn't spend too much time here. But if I was going to, it's 3 names. It's Tommy Fleetwood, it's Ricky Fowler, it's Gary Woodland. I love the way that Ricky Fowler is playing. He's played well at Bay Hill in the past. The number's fair. You can get him at 85-1. And then Gary Woodland, as you mentioned, I mean, I'm seeing as high as 100 now. He's the number 1 long iron player in this field. He's the number 1 player in proximity from 200 yards plus over a 2-year sample size. And Bay Hill is maybe outside of the major championships, the course with the highest percentage of long iron shots on the entire PGA Tour. So I'm getting the number 1 long iron player in the field at 100-1. Going to be hard not to go in that direction, my friend.
Simply for peace of mind, maybe. Can he be this week's Nick Taylor and give you a chance at the finish with a major championship on his resume and that confidence it could be to close the deal? So, I mean, it feels like now anything triple digits is a super bomb, Andy, but some tempting numbers because guys that are honestly playing quite well and the field is just too strong for them to be respected. I went to the Minwoo Lee wagon last week with he played solid, but you got to play great to win on the PGA Tour. He certainly didn't do that. I feel like this week sets up for him almost just as well. Obviously, the field is exponentially stronger, and the number is from 25-1 as peaking now at 150-1 as I stare at it on the odds checker grid, as low as 110. So in the super bomb category, that would be the guy for me. Anyone for you as we wrap this up and wait for the players?
I don't think so, Jeff. If there was a guy like right down here, I mean, Aaron Wise played sneakily well last week at the Honda Classic. I was on him at 28-1. He finishes top 30 and now he's 125-1. I obviously know much of that has to do with field strength, but it's just so interesting to me how quickly things change with these guys, right? I mean, Taylor Montgomery was a guy that we were all over, and he feels like a forgotten man already at 110-1.
Yeah.
I just can't see a player down here winning with all the star power at the top. So I think I'm probably cutting things off with the 65 on Hideki. But there's some interesting top 20 plays in here. I think Bezuidenhout can work his way around this course, especially I'm looking at the early forecast and it's looking brutal. It's looking windy. And Christian Bezuidenhout is the type of guy that can just scramble his way through and has a ton of excellent course history. But no one's winning from down here, Jeff.
Can't disagree with that, and that's pretty good tip on the way out. The weather does look brutal. It's something to keep an eye on. We try to bet early, get the best of the number, but that variable can ruin it all. Maybe that's something you sort of hold out a bullet or two to see what is expected, because at the moment it is looking like a carnage situation at the worst, and even when it's supposed to be at its best, it's still going to be pretty windy this week in Orlando. For Andy Lack, I am Geoff Fienberg. Thank you for watching. Do us a favor, hit that like, throw in a comment. Tell me who you think is going to win this week at Bay Hill. Players next week for the drive. Bay Hill. Catch you next week.